Hi and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Hello and welcome to Z Games, Australia's most electrifying gaming radio program. My name is Razor and we're broadcasting live from Studio 2 at 4ZZZ. You also might be listening to us around the country thanks to the Community Radio Network. I'd like to introduce the gang. Firstly, Mr. Lee.
Hey, hey.
Mr. Jody McGregor.
Hello.
And Candy Payne.
Hi.
This week we have an awesome show for you guys. The Witcher 3 just came out couple of weeks ago, and we've had a chance to have a go at it, rightly?
We have indeed, yes. We didn't really want to come in here. We wanted to stay playing The Witcher 3.
And Jody, you have been playing Vertiginous Golf?
Yes, I have.
It's kind of like a steampunk take on mini golf.
Yeah, in the sky.
But to get this episode started, here is the not tired at all, Miss Candy Payne.
Sorry, I'll stop yawning. Rockstar Games' parent company Take-Two Interactive has filed a lawsuit against the BBC for trademark infringement in regards to the upcoming TV movie Game Changer. The made-for-TV drama is based on the development and controversy of the Grand Theft Auto games and features Daniel Radcliffe and Bill Paxton in starring roles. A statement by Rockstar Games said that they had attempted to resolve the matter with the BBC outside of court to no avail.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, you think that a show like this couldn't help but make them look good, seeing as it's looking back on their beginnings when they were all young and cool, as opposed to now when they're just cranky old men who do dumb things like this.
Yeah, they're the man right now, stomping someone's artistic ambitions.
Yeah. They're exactly the authority figures they used to make fun of.
Mm-hmm. I hope someone holds a mirror up to them at some point, although I guess this is actually what this movie was supposed to be.
Someone can make a game about this.
Yes, that's it.
You have to play as the BBC trying to convince Rockstar to let you make the TV series about them.
Yeah, and then Rockstar or Take-Two would sue you and your game would never be made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old from British Columbia, Canada, has pled guilty to 23 charges of extortion, public mischief and criminal harassment relating to swatting, a practice where a distress call is made to the police prompting a SWAT team to arrive at an unsuspecting victim's house. The teenager's targets were mostly female League of Legends streamers, including one who dropped out of university due to ongoing harassment, including 2 swatting events at her home and another at her parents' home. The boy, who cannot be named, was a member of hacker group Lizard Squad, who were responsible for disrupting various game-related services, including PlayStation Network and Xbox Live.
I don't want to paint a target on my back, so Ray, can you make fun of this terrible, terrible child for me?
Yeah, what a jerk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know he's like 17 and technically a minor, but you know, when I was 17, I wasn't doing this crazy stuff, and I definitely knew that it wasn't right to send SWAT teams to people's houses. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, for a 17-year-old, he's managed to pack quite a lot of like unrepentant evil into his short life. So it's almost like that's ambitious, right?
Yeah, well, the rest of us were just like underage drinking. He's actually sending armed people around to women's houses to potentially shoot them.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yes.
Yeah. Please don't hack us, Lizard Squad.
The official Scrabble word list has been updated with 6,500 new words, including lols, hashtag, shizzle, emoji, vape, thanks, spelt with an X, and noob.
Now, Candy, I know you had a lot of opinions on this particular news article.
I don't want to sound like a grandmother, but look, 6,500 words is a lot. I mean, I haven't gone through the whole list previously, so I don't know what other ridiculous words are on there. Thanks, I'm not thrilled about. Emoji is a thing. Hashtag is definitely a thing. Shizzle, not impressed. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not thrilled.
At least the word nizzle isn't also... Well, maybe
Shizzle for nizzle?
Yeah.
I don't even know how you would... use it in a sentence. I'm just annoyed. I'd use it in a proper sentence, not a texting sentence.
Snoop Dogg uses it in a sentence all the time, and he's very successful as a creative. So
if there was a Snoop Dogg branded Scrabble where you could only use words that snoop, like a snoople, I would play that.
Oh my God.
No, do you know what I think this is?
Steal that idea, someone.
I think these are words that have like double Zs and Xs and Vs. They're all super high scoring letters, right? So I think they're just boosting the chance for people to get more points.
Like emoji is like worth like 12 points with that J alone.
Yeah,
so,
see? You double Z? Wow. Yeah, exactly. Ray cares a lot.
I just care about thanks with an X. I'm highly offended by that.
Yeah, me too.
That's not right.
No, it's lols with an O that bothers me. I think we all watched the 60 Minutes article where they revealed how old and out of touch they were, talking about Anonymous doing stuff for the lulls, and then they asked professors what that means. So this is just, not on.
Excellent, grandparents. Good one. Moving on.
Jody, you've been playing Vertiginous Golf, and that's what we'll be talking about first up.
Yes, I have. It's a game that, you know how mini golf makes golf less boring by transforming it from a game where you ruin a nice walk by having to hit a ball in a hole, by adding windmills and tunnels and crazy things,
gorillas,
clowns that you have to.
Yeah,
exactly. So Vertiginous Golf takes that up a notch. It adds huge fans that shoot your ball into the air. These spinning hexagons will fling you off in random directions. Tunnels that are like these Mario-esque tunnels that will transport you to the other side of the world, and then puts it all on floating islands in the sky. So it is very different to regular golf. Yes, it's not anything like I don't know, Tiger Woods 2012 or Wii Golf, which is the last golf game I think I actually played. It's a lot more like. Actually, it's like a physics puzzle game. What it reminds me of is not golf, but Portal, only you have a golf club instead of the portal gun, because really what you're trying to do is get from one place to another while getting past a bunch of weird Rube Goldberg-style mechanical things.
Yeah.
And you have, as well as the golf club, you have a limited amount of abilities you can use as well. There's like a rewind that lets you reset the ball back to wherever it started, which you can use like if you miss the island entirely and fall off, which happens to me a lot.
Yeah, I imagine that would happen a lot if you were playing golf in the sky.
Yeah, it's the main problem with playing golf in the sky. Yeah. There's people down on the ground with concussions now.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of them probably. You also have this bug that's attached to the top of the ball that sort of hovers above it and has jets that it can use to alter the trajectory of your ball once it's hit the ground. It's like an aftertouch thing, like in you know how in the Burnout racing games, after you crash, you have a few seconds where you can steer your car so that you can crash into your competitors.
Yeah.
It's like that with a golf ball, and you're just steering it like over the lip into the hole because you were just like, otherwise you would be 1 inch too short, and that would be incredibly frustrating.
Right. They should have that in real golf. That would be great.
Yeah, it's a definite improvement. It's one of the few things about Vertiginous Golf that makes it more forgiving, because everything else about Vertiginous Golf makes it far more brutal and punishing. It's incredibly hard. Some of the courses are nightmare mazes of floating pyramids and things that will send your ball off into the clouds. Or these travelator things that as soon as you touch them, they're like, it's like the moving walkway in an airport, only it runs at 100 miles an hour, and there'll be 5 of them in different directions. You just have to maneuver yourself through them without hitting the one that shoots you into a water feature, while trying to hit the one that shoots you into a bouncy rubber pad that will send you towards the green.
So when you say moving you, are we just watching like a golf club and the ball,
yes.
Or are you an actual character? Or
yeah, it's just a golf club and a ball, because you aren't there as a physical person. There's a backstory explaining this, and I'm surprised and impressed that they bothered explaining this, but there's actual science behind why there are floating islands in the sky you play golf on, and an entire alternate history backstory.
Right.
There's a city on the ground called Scudborough where these sad working-class Victorian-era people live in pollution. And then in the sky, there's another city called London, which is like this Bioshock Infinite place where all of the super rich people live. You see them in the background on these huge pyramids, and they are the ones who've created this golf course. But the oiks from down below are allowed to virtually come up to play golf. Like, they're not allowed into the country club physically, but you sit in this machine that electrifies your head, and then you appear as a virtual presence in the sky who can control a golf club and play golf in the nice, clouds above all of the pollution.
Huh.
And there's a story mode which casts you as someone who slowly discovers that there's a revolutionary organization down below, and you can join them and then help overthrow the people who live in the sky while playing golf.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, actually.
It's very strange.
Plus, I guess if you were able to somehow control a virtual golf club from afar, you would be an amazing weapon of the revolution, right?
If the revolution could be won by hitting people in the head with golf balls,
Most
then yes.
revolutions do end up being won by someone clubbing someone else repeatedly.
That's a good point.
But just usually by the authoritarian figures who are stamping out that revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now the power is in the other hand. Something. Yes. Okay. So this sounds very complicated, and the golf games can be sometimes a little bit tedious if you are terrible at them, and this is just adding whirring machines and what have you to make that much worse. Is this fun?
Sometimes, but you're right that sometimes it does overcomplicate what should be a simpler and more fun thing, especially in the story mode courses where, as well as just getting the ball in the hole, there are a bunch of checkpoints you have to hit along the way. They're like old-fashioned gramophones with vinyl on them, and they play audio logs that give you the next bit of story.
There are audio logs in this game as well?
There are audio logs.
Wow,
you have to hit those in
familiar.
sequence before you actually get the ball in the hole. And that means that those courses are really long and complicated and often involve multiple levels, so that you have to not just go from this island to that island, but also up and down through islands and across these curved rugs that are floating in the sky. And sometimes there are walled greenhouses that have small entrances you have to hit the ball through, and they'll be like over where the hole is. And yes, it is more complicated than it needs to be. But
golf is meant to be like a relaxing game, isn't it? You know, people go out when they're retired and play this to chill out. This sounds really stressful.
Yeah.
Like, my head's confused just trying to understand this.
It can be headache-inducing, especially on the longer courses. But fortunately, you don't have to play it in story mode, and I recommend that you don't, because among the other modes, there's an actual mini-putt mode, which gives you much smaller courses that don't have these checkpoint audio log things, where it's just one or two islands, one or two obstacles, and you're just going from one place to another place that you can actually see from the start of the course, rather than following this entire map across an insane landscape. And those I enjoyed a lot more. When it's smaller and simpler, it's a much better game, but I'm not sure the game's designers have actually realized that, because they get more and more ambitious as it goes on with insane levels that are just nightmarish.
What is the hardest thing that you have actually successfully beaten in the game?
There are things called dark modes later on, which involve all kinds of insane trick shots. I say that's hard, but you can just rewind as long as you've got enough fuel. So really you're just doing the same thing again and again until you can do that impossible shot where you have to launch up the side of a curved rug and then down the other side of it, and then hit this spinning hexagon that will fling you off at exactly the right angle to wind up on the green. And when you finally do it, that looks impressive, but you do it only because you've hit the rewind button 5 times before that and screwed it up.
Right. Well, I mean, Tiger Woods as a young man experienced similar things, except without curved rugs and spinning hexagons.
Yeah, that's exactly how he played.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to these extra bonuses, like the rewind button, or is there a limit to number of golf balls that you get, or...?
There's no limit to the number of balls you have, but you have a limited amount of fuel, which is used both in the rewinds and in your aftertouch with a little bug that maneuvers you around. So you can't do that forever. On some of the courses, there will be little eggs that you can pick up on your way that will refuel you, but most of the time you don't have enough to keep doing that forever.
So does it keep score? Like, what is the average, like, par for the spinning, hissing, gyroscope space golf?
Well, to keep the numbers down, there will be free shot things that you can hit, and they'll deduct a number from your score, because otherwise par would be like 15 or something.
Yeah.
And because of this, it keeps it down to more respectable things. It'll be like 5 or something. But I will frequently be about 10 over par. Yes.
How can we get this game?
You can get it on PC and Mac. It's on Steam at the moment for, I think, $15.99. Ray and Lee, you have both, I understand, been playing Beard Growth and Monster Slaying Simulator Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Yes.
Yep.
We have.
How long are yours? Who has the longest beard?
My beard's pretty long in the game, actually, at the moment. I shaved at one point, but it's grown back, so it's quite luscious.
I'm pretty sure Lee's is longer than mine.
Is it like Sean Connery?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Quite like that, yes. We'll get to that.
Right.
Okay. So
now we've got that out of the way.
Yeah. So The Witcher is a series by CD Projekt Red, which is a Polish company based on an exceptionally popular Polish novel series by Andrzej Sapkowski. It's a Polish name. They're very hard to pronounce, lots of consonants. But they kind of came out of nowhere with The Witcher 1 100 years ago. And
2007, wasn't it?
that was it, yes. And then that was surprisingly good, considering that no one was expecting anything like that. The sequel came out and again pushed PC hardware into the stratosphere, sold very, very well, did very well on the Xbox, and this is their next gen, I'm using finger motions here, listeners, sorry, release, which is long awaited, The Witcher 3, which is all about Geralt of Rivia, who is a swordsman in medieval times who has been mutated by alchemy and magic into making him the ideal monster hunting dude.
Oh, I thought it was a genetic thing. I thought he was basically fantasy Wolverine.
No, he has been mutated specifically to make a subspecies of chaps who are good at killing wyverns and griffins and other ghouls and what have you.
Right.
Yes.
It's an important job.
Yeah, it is.
But he does have the voice of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Or it's like a nice blend between Wolverine and Solid Snake. You know, that gruffness.
Yeah.
He's gravel.
Yeah.
He's just made of gravel, isn't he?
Yeah, he's basically, he's like one part Batman, one part Wolverine, one part Clint Eastwood.
One part Elric.
One part, there's a lot of Elric in the basic outline. But despite the fact that he looks and sounds like he would just be this absurd mixture of popular things to create a dumb grey stew, he actually he's a fantastic protagonist to play as, and it's a really interesting, well-written and nuanced game series, but also one that I think can be quite off-putting because it's weird, right?
Interestingly, this is a bit of a power fantasy. Like Geralt is someone that every dude wants to be, right? He's pretty badass, but the world doesn't revolve around you like in most RPGs where you are playing the power fantasy.
Yeah. Geralt he's an exterminator, and everyone hates him, but they see the reason for his existence, and so you are never playing as you're not the noble lord or the king who's going to win the war. You're the guy who comes in and gets the job done while everyone sort of sneers at you. So it's not just a power fantasy. It's also like that teenage thing about being like, I'm really cool and no one gets me. Like,
yeah, I'm an outsider, man. You wouldn't understand.
Yeah. But
and also girls love it.
Yeah, that's true. Girls do love Geralt.
I bet his pencil case looks badass.
It's
with all the
probably
skulls
amazing.
on it.
Yeah.
And Geralt loves the girls too.
Yes.
Particularly sorceresses and witches.
He's a big fan of witches and sorceresses, yes. The more sorceressy or witchy a woman, he's all about them. So it's what's wonderful about it as well, though, is that you're a character who is kind of old and tired of everyone's shit. So when people are like, hey, can you help me with something? He kind of sighs and then just goes, okay, what do I have to do now? He's a really fun character to incorporate or to be in control of. Right, Ray?
That's right. And true to, I guess, the RPG nature of it, you kind of choose the way that his path goes. Like in the other games, Witcher 2 specifically, there was one option where the latter half of the game would play out very differently depending on one single choice that you made. Yeah. So here there are a similar amount of choices at work, some of which decide who lives, who dies, what happens to various estates and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, RPGs have long had this thing about having moral choices, and then the results of those play out in front of you. But the Witcher's deal is that every decision you make isn't one of black and white morality. You're never deciding, whether you kill a kitten or send it off to graduate school. It's always like each decision seems like a terrible idea. Like either way, you're in a world that is like full of like racism and violence and war, and it's a really unpleasant place, and you're always trying to pick the lesser of two evils. And what happens is that some decisions that you make on the fly seem like you've chosen the best course of action, and it's not until hours later that the ripple effect of that comes back to haunt you. I had one thing where I made a decision I freed a ghost, basically, is the simplest way of describing it. I freed a ghost because I wanted it to save some kids, and then like 5 hours of gameplay later, that meant that one of my friends, allies, as a result of all of this stuff, he hanged himself. And I was quite sad about that, but I couldn't just like reload, new save game, new decision, because that happened ever so long ago. That was the result of what seemed like the best choice at the time. And so living with the consequences is something kind of unique to this series.
Surprisingly, for a game that's so story-driven, it's quite open as well. This is the first open-world Witcher we've had.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays for me like an awesome blend of the open-world action of Skyrim, but there's also the kind of beauty of Red Dead Redemption, and that's sort of exacerbated by the fact that Geralt has a horse this time.
Yeah.
So you can ride around the countryside on a horse, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, it is a massive, massive living enough world, in the same way that Red Dead Redemption was really good at creating those moments where you would just be on your horse on a mountain and like the wind would be blowing through the grass and then a rabbit bounces by. Like that great emotive response stuff. This does that fantastically. And you don't get as much of that that seemingly realism that Skyrim tries to emulate, where characters are eating bread and everything can be interacted with. People tend to have only a few speech marks if you disrupt them, if they're not a main character. But it's also a game that doesn't expect you to stop and talk to every single peasant like Skyrim does. You've got a job to do, and it feels more like you wouldn't expect to be able to have extended conversations with the pedestrians in Grand Theft Auto. It's the same here. So it's an interesting blend of like a GTA style thing, as well as those complex dialogue-driven RPGs like BioWare makes.
Ray and Lee have been telling us all about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. There's actually hunting in this game, right? That title isn't just there to throw you off like the last one was called Assassins of Kings, and I'm not sure there were any assassins in it.
There were actually a bunch of Assassins of Kings. At least 2 kings get assassinated in that last game.
Really? How many hours did you have to play it for that to happen?
There's one of the first
Oh, the guy on the boat?
Yeah.
He was a king?
So that was a king, but then also like that at the end of that opening sequence, that guy you hang out with who's a king gets assassinated, which launches the whole game.
I did not play very much of that game.
Okay. So yes, there's hunting in this, and it's a lot of fun, right, Ray?
Although the Wild Hunt is not in direct reference to the hunting itself.
Yep.
The Wild Hunt's like a clan that is the main antagonist, I guess.
It's a like ghostly end of the world type thing.
Yeah, but the hunting is good. The first hunt that you undertake is a giant griffin.
It's a cockatrice.
Cockatrice, sorry.
Yeah, which is different because it has a chicken head.
Okay. Sorry, I got my my fantastic creatures confused.
Well, that's because like there are griffins in the game as well, and like part of what makes it fun is that you have to, as Geralt the Witcher, he has to know the difference between each monster, because each one has a different means of hunting and killing. So let's talk about the cockatrice, though, because it's a fun word to say.
Yeah, so after you slay it, you get to mount its head.
So you've skipped the hunting.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Jeez.
How do you kill a cockatrice?
Yeah.
Well, you've got this sweet Witcher vision.
Yep.
Which it's like detective mode in Batman, or Assassin Creed vision in Assassin's Creed and what have you.
Yeah, Geralt the Witcher, as he is a mutant, has enhanced Witcher senses and can hear and smell and see things like footprints, and you get to chase smells in this game, which doesn't happen enough in things.
Like the smell of blood.
And they show up like colours that you have to follow.
Yeah.
I think I've done that in a few games.
Yeah, it's great. It's always fun. Chasing smells is the way to go.
All right.
So there's obviously you're pursuing footprints and things, but you also tend to have to interview people based on whether there's been a witness to what the monster has done, and the peasantry have no idea about anything, and so it's fun watching Geralt work out exactly what type of monster this is based on their dumb descriptions, because their descriptions always end with them going, "And then I ran because I shit myself, sire." And then Geralt's just like, that is basically every exchange that you have with someone when they need a witcher to kill a monster.
He's like a really cool medieval detective.
Yeah.
Like he'll interview these worthless peasants, but then he'll come to some awesome breakthrough conclusion like, oh, it's a female.
Yeah.
Must hang out near the nest.
Yeah.
I should look in the hills.
Yes, that's right. The griffin that you hunt, the cockatrice. Now I'm confused. That's one of the fun details, is that when you go to find the nest, you discover that it's been destroyed by soldiers thinking that they were going to get rid of their monster problem, and they kill the female, which has upset the male, and that's why he's attacking the village. Like, that stuff is really fun when you're like piecing that together and playing that out, and then going from that early work to setting a trap and then figuring out like which of your cool powers, because as a witcher, you're not just like a dude who hacks things to pieces with a sword. You do that as well, but you're importantly an alchemist who makes his own potions and poisons and bombs, and you have to figure out which one of these, along with the handful of magic spells you use, will help you take down a threat. And every fight is quite a complicated one. Even simple fights against bandits will mess you up if you're not playing and not paying attention.
It seems like they've taken a bit of inspiration from the Dark Souls franchise here, where every fight could be your last. And I did enjoy that aspect of it, although I don't want to be playing too many fights over and over again in a game that's 30 to 50 hours long.
Yeah, I think it's a bit simpler than a Dark Souls game. It's also a bit looser and more forgiving, but I think you do hit the wall very early in. I'd finished the opening sequence. I'd fought the griffin, the cockatrice. It was quite a complicated fight. I used like all of the things in my repertoire, which was really great. You had to actually like use the tools that you're given, rather than those things being superfluous, as they so often are in a lot of these games. And then about 2 hours later, I was just riding my horse along the road at the middle of the night, and I encountered a bunch of guys who were just looting dead bodies after a scuffle between the two armies. And 5 guys cleaned my clock. It was kind of embarrassing. Like, the head of the cockatrice was still hanging on the side of my horse. And because I just sort of thought, hey, I killed a flying monster, screw these, starving peasants, I got an axe to the face many times.
Yeah, in Dragon Age Inquisition, the game kind of arbitrarily blocked you from progressing too quickly in the main quest by making you accrue power points from doing worthless side quests. Here, there's none of that.
Yep.
If you're not up to level, you'll just be killed by the first guy.
Yeah.
So it's a very, I guess, old school way of dealing with people who haven't done the work.
Yeah. I think also, though, one thing that I really like about it is that despite the fact that it still does ramp up in difficulty like that, and you do have like threats that are a high level that have huge numbers that you have to chip through, for the most part fights require you to actually be good at fighting in the game, rather than just you having to have the best numbers and having just played the longest. And I really am glad that, particularly considering it is a bit more of an action title, that fights are resolved through skill and mastery rather than simply grinding until you are a golden god. So, kudos to them.
Is the combat better than it was in the first two? Because it wasn't great. The first one was actually terrible for the combat.
Yeah, it's much, much better. It's a game that has definitely been improved by the fact that they've had to polish it for the console release. So I would not recommend playing with a mouse and keyboard if you have it on PC. But as a gamepad game, the combat is quite responsive and easy to come to grips with. The previous game locked out a lot of really valuable skills early on and then didn't teach you about that at all. Whereas this, you can dodge and roll and block and stuff, and you have access to all of that, and you have to use a combination of these things in order to survive a fight. Yeah, if you'd played the previous one, the last two games had very different fighting, and they were both kind of a bear to come to grips with. But this feels a lot more natural and is just fun. Every fight that I've gotten into, I've actually enjoyed. Like I'm always glad when bandits step out of the dark shadows in a city and try to mug me, because more fool them. You've got two swords on your back. Don't mug that guy.
I also really like that you can just randomly cleave someone in twain when you're fighting. Like if you have the cockatrice head on the side of your horse as a trophy, that also gives you an ability that grants you 20% extra dismemberment,
yes.
So that you're more likely to like cleave someone's arm off or slice them in half, and that's kind of cool. Like the game doesn't pause and like flip around Michael Bay style when you dismember someone. It just happens as a matter of course, which I found much more brutal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, there's a lot of dismemberment. Like I did mention that I had a monster's head stuck to the side of my horse for ages.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah,
I like that.
You're not just Geralt stabbing dudes up with your swords, though, right? In this one, you actually get to be more than one character.
Yeah, you get to... the plot is around you initially trying to chase down a woman named Ciri, who is your adopted daughter. You'd sort of trained her in the ways of being a witcher, and she is mysterious and magical and can teleport around a bit, which is surprising. And when you encounter people who know where she is, they will tell you what happened with her up to that point, and so you get to play as Ciri, and that's really fun as well. She plays slightly differently. Those bits aren't as open. That's not the full game. You're just basically playing an extended segment to see her story, but it's a nice break as well, and it's fun like hearing that get narrated by other characters as well, and seeing how you learn of this character who is important to the protagonist through other people that you're already kind of on good terms with. And so it's a good way of establishing that relationship with the player before you actually encounter her in game, and then you don't have to be like, well, I don't care about her.
Is it like with Bastion, the narration, so that if you screw up and accidentally die, that peasant's going to be like, oh, no, wait, that's not what happened.
That would be so great, but it's not, unfortunately. No. I'm sorry. Yeah.
We're talking The Witcher. Lee, Razor, you've been playing. What do you want to share with us now? Dislikes, maybe?
Well,
there's any?
Incidentally, there's just this card game that's tucked away that everyone seems to play, at least all the nobles and all the merchants.
Yeah.
So you can collect cards. I haven't actually played it, but Lee, you have been enjoying it?
Yeah. The last game had like arm wrestling and stuff in it as a side activity, and this one has sort of limited that now to this amazingly well-designed combat card game where, the last 2 days I got really into it, and I've just been ignoring helping peasants and other people. I just walk into town and I find the merchant who's selling the cards, and I buy all of his cards, and then I play cards against him. The game is called Gwent, and it's a really clever thing. It's really you build a deck of your army out of components, army dudes, and then you have 3 rounds. But it's a game where you potentially you only have 10 cards to play 3 rounds with, and it's supposed to emulate actual warfare where you want to have feints to make your opponent think that this is your big attack, and so they waste all their good resources early on in the war that you're willing to throw, so that then when they're depleted you can bring out all your big stuff, and so you can then surprise them by having the change in weather. Like maybe a frost will mean that all of your melee guys are ruined, but every time that you do that, like weather affects both sides of the battlefield as well. So it's a really fun, like simple concept that has this built-in layers of complexity. And like it's a game that is just good enough to just play by itself, and it's wedged into this thing that is impossibly huge and fun already. It's so unnecessary, and yet I'm so glad it's in there. And apparently later on in the game there are tournaments, and there are like quest rewards, and there's huge stuff all around you, just not only being the greatest swordsman in the land, but then you're going to decide to be the best Gwent player as well. So
is it wedged in there in a way that's hard to find? Like, did you just stumble across it? Or?
No. In the opening, the prologue area, there's a guy that you sit down with who teaches you how to play.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then anytime you approach a merchant, your options are either, can I buy cabbages off you, or do you want to play some cards instead, basically. Cool. Yeah.
We've been talking about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is available for the PC, the PS4, and the Xbox One. Lee, would you like to sum up your final thoughts about the game?
Yeah, look, I love it. I love it so much. It's really hard. It's really interesting. It's incredibly well written. It's massive and gorgeous. It combines a lot of things from recent games that I have already loved. So there's the open world and the serenity of Red Dead Redemption with the combat of Dark Souls, and then the consequence-driven story structure of a Telltale game like The Walking Dead. It is fantastic, and it may not be for everyone because it is so difficult and grim at times, but if you can get past that, it's phenomenal, and it's so rewarding. What do you think, Ray?
I'm amazed by how concise and how concise the storyline is, because it's an open world game. Like with a game like Skyrim, you can go off into the wilderness and do anything, but they're all just kind of unnecessary and unrelated, like plot points that you're doing, like helping a woman find a chicken or something. But in The Witcher here, all of the quests are driven by Geralt's desire to find Ciri. Like everything that he does, even if it's not directly like looking for her footsteps, are somewhat peripherally in service of this hunt that he's on.
Yeah, the developer CD Projekt Red, when they said that they were going to be working on The Witcher 3 was going to be massive and an open world like Skyrim, they specifically called that game out for having something of a superfluous plot. That the best way to play Skyrim was to not pay attention to the story and find your own within that, and how they wanted to avoid that directly. They wanted every place and every quest to not be just like cookie cutter and a Mad Libs thing, and they really have done that. They have somehow built like compelling story into every corner of this massive world, and that's phenomenal as an achievement.
And should we just spend a little bit of time talking about the things that weren't awesome in the game?
Like they're nitpicks though. When you move around, it's sometimes fiddly transitioning from walking to running, and targeting is a bit of a pain if there's a candle nearby to something that you want to actually interact with. There's like that. These are the faults with it ultimately.
Yeah, I had pretty much the same issue as well. He is a bit fiddly to navigate, especially in tight places. Yeah. But yeah, like it's just a tiny blemish on what is, I believe, one of the greatest RPGs to come along in years.
Yeah.
Wow, big statement.
I'm glad he said it first, but I agree.
All right, that has been The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and this will bring us to the close of this week's episode of Zed Games. Thank you very much for your company this evening. Back next week at the same time. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.